What's up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Seth, and today we're going to be taking a bit of a break from our usual multiplayer extravaganza with Cube World, because I wanted to take an opportunity to not only explain to you guys and gals what my intentions are for this series, what's going on with the game, where I ended up getting it, because that's a big question of controversy that so many of you ended up having, and then also just what's actually going on with the game, my thoughts towards its design, and whether or not it's actually going anywhere, or if it secretly is. So I'm very open about the fact that I'm pretty sure this game has been abandoned. The track record already shows that this game's last update was in 2013. It got taken out of the store. You can't buy it anymore. And since then, there's been no updates whatsoever. Out of nowhere, I think like maybe a year ago, the developer ended up starting to use his Twitter again. And since then, it's already been another year since he's actually made his last post on his Twitter account. So clearly, this guy's got some, I wouldn't say commitment issues, but for lack of a better term, it's like he comes around, says that he's working on the game, and then he just abandons it again, seemingly because he either gets bored with it or just the project is too ambitious. Who knows? Who cares? As far as I'm concerned, this game is just dead. Prove me wrong, developer. Prove me wrong, because if out of nowhere he ends up putting out an update that ends up changing the game, and it's actually like, oh yeah, by the way, I've secretly been working on it, even then I don't think that the game is going to ever be finished. But if it does end up having an update, then you know what, I'll eat my own words. That'll be absolutely awesome if this game gets an update. But until then, I'm not going to delude myself into thinking that the developer is actually working on this when clearly he's abandoned the project. Now, that said, despite the fact that that is my own personal opinions towards it, I have listened to a lot of your cries on my first video saying, you know, that the game wasn't going anywhere. A lot of you were saying, oh yeah, the game is coming back and he's still developing it and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, right. You guys are a very sad, sorry bunch. But you gotta give it to the Cube World community that they are probably the most dedicated people in regards to waiting for a video game out there. The Cube World Reddit is surprisingly still extremely active. The Cube World Discord is very active as well. And the Discord in itself actually has a few updates about the game that was actually messaged by the developer to an individual who, as far as I know, is the one who controls the Discord in private. So it was private emails that ended up talking about these updates, that otherwise there is no internet post about this stuff whatsoever. And the interesting thing about that is that the recent post was actually of August of this year. Now, before that, the last post was like December of 2017. And then August of this year, and we haven't heard anything since. So once again, I would argue the same point. The game's dead. It doesn't matter if he says he's working on it until we end up seeing an update. That's it. But the updates that he has shown are still very exciting. And why are so many people still clinging to this idea that Cube World is going to end up being developed? Well, because in all honesty, this developer is amazing. The fact that this game is still in an alpha build and it's got some of the most intense and fun combat that I've played in a voxel game. The combat in Cube World trumps Trove, like, no question. I love it. The combat is fun, it's addictive, it's fluent, it's very skill-based because you go into it, you know, you got to actually know what you're doing. And it's actually got a couple different class options in that, you know, I'll talk a little bit more in detail about all of this stuff because so many of you, I know, don't have access to this game. And because of it, you're very confused about what's actually going on in the videos. So I'm playing as the rogue character. There's actually, you know, always going to end up being a couple different class trees. So the assassin class tree, and then the ninja class tree. This is going to end up changing your gameplay a little bit. There is going to end up being this character right here. There's the warrior who has two options for either two-handed or dual wielding. Then there's the archer character who can use, I don't know what the abilities are. And then there's the other character, which is the mage, which can use fire or water magic being healing, fire magic being more towards damage. Now, each of the characters themselves respectively has a bunch of different ability, or not abilities, playstyles based on the weapons that you choose. So you're going to end up having 3 weapon options for every character. So for the rogue character, I'm using the two-handed sword. I like it. It's got a lot of sweeping damage. It's got a lot of control to it. My right click, as you've seen, just does kind of a stab attack that just damages enemies like crazy. But then you could also dual wield daggers. Now, dual wielding daggers is going to generally be less overall damage than a sword at the cost of your attacks being a lot more faster, you know, and your right click is going to actually poison enemies. Then you can swap over to the fist weapons. Fist weapons being the weakest damage that you can actually have as this character, but the fastest attack speed that you can have as the character. And your right click is going to be a roundhouse kick that's going to essentially knock enemies down, or at least have a chance to knock them down. I just personally like the playstyle of a two-handed sword because I think that it's really, really cool. Not to mention I'm actually rocking my mythic weapon right now, which we'll talk about that in a bit. That's what the red items are. So the game has quite a bit of complexity to it. As of right now, like essentially all we're really doing in the game is you level up, you have infinite levels in the game, and then you spend it on your skill points, which essentially I think these can go to 200, if not even more than that. Maybe they're infinite, I don't know. But you know, they scale slowly as you end up leveling up your mounts. You know, you can see that the amount of movement speed we're getting is very, very minuscule. It's just going down up very, very small because we're at such a high level with all of our abilities already. And the same as with our skills, it's going to end up having the cooldown change for each of your attacks as well as you end up leveling it up. You can always end up changing to, you know, changing your abilities, reallocating your skills. All you gotta do is just go into town, find a trainer, and then you end up paying a fee. Very, very quick, very easy. So the game's got some very, very good bones. And that, I think, is why so many people are still so excited about it, is just because the game is already very, very impressive in a technological standpoint in terms of the gameplay, you know, because the combat's very fun. It's very fluent, as I've already mentioned. And not to mention going into dungeons. The dungeons will scale appropriately, you know, based on your level. Questing and stuff like that will end up giving you platinum, which is a reward that you can end up using to adapt your gear, and that can essentially end up leveling your gear to your current level or scaling gear down to your current level. And of course, it's going to end up becoming extremely game-breakingly expensive to upgrade gear as you end up getting more and more powerful, right? But essentially, if we end up opening our map, these swords that you see over here, these are going to end up being the daily quests. So if we end up going back into town and resetting the day, all of the daily quests in the biome are going to end up resetting. And you can kind of see this is going to end up being one biome. So obviously there is a little too much travel time. The developer has talked about how he's going to be adding kind of a fast travel system in the, you know, kind of like a griffins is what he ended up showing. And it's like, it's like World of Warcraft where it's a taxi. So you'll end up buying it in town and stuff like that. And again, you know, these are great mechanics. Clearly the developer has a very, very good understanding of what it takes to make a very good game. Been influenced by Diablo, World of Warcraft, and so many other great games. And you can see, you know, the love that was put into this version of the game. And unfortunately, we haven't seen that adapted at all. You know, and even if Cube World does end up having an update eventually, it's not going to be a full release by any means. It's not like the game's just going to suddenly be like, oh, by the way, I've secretly been working on this. It's done, you know. We're going to see an update that hopefully is going to end up adding some content, or we'll just never see the update. Honestly, I'm not holding my breath. If we see an update, that's awesome. If we don't, who cares? The game's still fun as it is. So anyways, let's talk about the in-game. Let's talk about the gear and stuff before I end up calling it a day. Taming creatures is based off of the pets section right here. You'll end up getting various food from fighting different monsters and stuff. And each respective food can only be used on a specific animal. So for this crocodile, for example, I used an apple slice or something like that. Candied apple you use on a horse, etc., etc. The creatures you can level up, which, I mean, it's not really ideal, honestly. They gain XP very, very slowly, and usually they'll die and their XP will reset for various reasons. But you can see the little bottles that are underneath the underneath the XP. That's its water retention. So it's like the mount will end up getting, or the creature, I guess I should say, will end up getting thirsty as you end up riding it around. And if it ends up going to 0, you can't actually ride it anymore. So you just gotta go stand in some water to actually refuel it. I guess we'll call it fuel, right? But the way that the skills work in the game is pretty cool. You have to get 5 into Pet Mastery before you can start pumping XP into riding. Pet Mastery is going to end up, of course, giving your pet more health, and then leveling it, I think, just gives it more damage, if I'm not mistaken. 5 to climbing gives you to hang gliding, and the hang glider you can use to glide around at pretty good speeds. It scales up pretty quickly. Swimming into sailing for ocean biomes exclusively. You can't really use it anywhere else, honestly. And then there's just your basic abilities as well. So for my character, you know, I'm using ninja, so quick melee fighters who are specialized in evasion and counterattacks. I really like this playstyle because as you dodge all attacks while performing this, or you dodge all attacks while performing a special attack. That's our counter ability, because I should say that dodging is just always going to end up negating damage, right? But essentially it means that when I'm doing a dash attack or I'm using my ult, I'm not going to be able to take any damage, and that's really, really cool. I really like that playstyle because also elusiveness comes in. So each time you dodge an attack, you gain 25 MP, and your next special attack will be a critical. So that's where sometimes you'll see these purple cloud around my character, but it also applies to when I end up using a special attack. So if I end up using my right click, which I don't have any mana built up to use it and show you guys, but if I would use that attack while an enemy is in the middle of attacking me, I'll avoid their damage, which essentially the game is going to consider an evasive, you know, dodging an attack. So I won't get the 25 MP back from my special attack, but I will end up building up crits. So it's a really cool character in that regard. And then, you know, also makes it so that you have to play very aggressive, which I really like. Intercept is just our number 1 that's going to dash us towards enemies, and then we basically do a stab, and our ultimate is going to have our character jump back and throw 3 shurikens, which kind of have a little bit of AoE. Most of all, you use it for the mobility. It's really, really nice. There's a lot of exploits that you can do in the game. One of them is when you're crafting things, if you just keep holding down your craft button, open your map, and just keep holding left click, you essentially can end up crafting that item infinite until you end up having 50 of it. It doesn't matter how many resources you put into it. You can just have 1 heart flower, 1 water flask, and then you can just craft 50 potions from that. So we're using that bug only for crafting potions and healing items because there's no consequences for death in the game, and because of it there's no real reason to not just have infinite healing potions, because we're still gonna die anyways in difficult dungeons, and it doesn't matter if we do, it's just more travel time, right? So why not just get extra pots? And then, oh, what else was I going to talk about? Oh yeah, the mythic gear. So as far as the gears are concerned, you know, it's gonna go from I think it's just blue to, or green, I guess I should say, to blue, to purple, to yellow, and then red. And those drops just kind of vary based on the enemies that you end up fighting. But red gear is actually very special because red gear, mythic, is technically not supposed to be in the game because this is gear that is essentially developer gear that didn't end up getting removed because this game's never updated, right? So you can end up finding certain dungeons. There's certain world seeds that you can look up online that will end up generating with it. And I just ended up getting to my sword. I'm really happy about that because I needed to have power 50 or 85, which you gain more power just passively from leveling. Think of it as power rank like a Trove, but it's not governed by gear or anything. So anyways, I needed to be power 85, which essentially is level 105 to 108 or whatever, to end up using a blueprint, which you gotta be the right power to end up using them and the right class. So you can see this one I can't even use because it's level 87 or power 87. And finally I was able to craft this bad boy, and then I put various weapon mods on it. And the biggest reason why it's so overpowered is because it's got not only insane amounts of damage, but the tempo, which is attack speed, is 34. So it's really, really fast, and it's really, really fun. You guys probably already saw it in the last episode. So anyways, I think that's going to cover everything about the game. Oh, and then I guess last but not least, where did I get the game? Lots of you keep asking. Well, if you do a quick Google search, I'm not going to link you to it or anything like that, but you can actually download Cube World fairly easily, despite the fact that it's out of the store. Wink, wink. But for myself personally, I bought this game back in 2013, so I still have the install file on my computer for the game, and that's where I'm still able to run it. I still have a legit copy, you know. I hope that the game ends up updating one day, dude. But again, it's like, don't wait for it. It's not happening. I mean, when you see all the stuff, like when the dev, you see all the posts that the dev made on his Twitter, and then, you know, the stuff that they talk about in the Cube World Discord, it gets you hyped. It really does, because this game had a lot of potential, but it's never met. It's never going to be met as far as I'm concerned. What do you guys think? You know, leave a comment in the comment down below. Personally, I also think, in closing, one of the reasons why I was just like so disappointed with Trove recently was because I ended up going back to Cube World. Because when you look at Trove, the core mechanics of the game are what I enjoy. And it's funny that the core mechanics of Trove were highly influenced, if not just directly stolen to the best of their abilities, from Cube World. And then from that point on, with the basic mechanics of the game, Trove got taken in a completely different direction, and a direction that I ultimately don't really like, compared to Cube World, where it, you know, if the developer ever updated it, you know, the direction that he's going with it is actually a lot of really cool features and stuff like that, right? And it's like, it's just funny how you look at Trove's development, and clearly Cube World had a lot of influence, and then they kind of just had to make it up as they went along, because this guy abandoned the project, and because of it, Trove ended up kind of suffering from it. Because the other thing too that you got to think about when you look at Trove or Cube World or anything like that is, unfortunately, in this day and age, 2018, the voxel adventure genre, it's still very untapped. I don't know why game developers are so stupid that they don't realize that a voxel adventure game can easily beat Minecraft. Like, Minecraft's a great game, don't get me wrong, but it could, you know, have a AAA company take a crack at it, and suddenly it's just gonna blow it out of the water. Look at Fortnite. It stole one of the most popular indie games of all time, PUBG, which was of course based off of Hunger Games, which ended up getting popularized through Minecraft, DayZ, H1Z1, etc. And it's like, you look at that and people keep thinking that Fortnite is just a random fluke. No, Fortnite's the only AAA company that ended up copying a very, very popular indie game. Until then, we haven't seen any AAA company copy Minecraft. We've seen them take elements from it, but never make their own voxel adventure game. And that's where also, you know, you look at Trove. It's running wild because it doesn't have any competition. Cube World would have been great if the developer did what he should have done years ago, where he made $1 million, and then rather than abandon the project, he should have hired a team where he could have been the idea man and everybody else could have developed it. Then the game would have actually seen the light of day, instead of us sitting here clinging on to these tiny scraps of the dev saying, yeah, I'm still working on it. You know, and personally, I'm really, really worried because the developer's keeping all this stuff on his hard drive instead of just updating the stupid game or having a test version or even an early access version on Steam, which it could easily get there. Like, seriously, this game would explode if he ended up having any sort of update come out that wasn't just him posting about it. And the thing that I'm worried about is, what if his computer just dies one day? Goodbye years worth of Cube World content. Or should I say months worth, because who knows how long he's actually been working on the game. Anyways, hashtag rant, hashtag over. We're going to go back to our normal Cube World episodes where it's just us hanging out, having fun. We're getting to the end game though, so the content's getting a little bit thin. That said, still really enjoying it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, sub, hit that notification bell. And if you want to support me, you can always sponsor the YouTube channel by hitting that join button down below, buying some of the merch, which is the links in the description for that. We got the Oh Hi Merc shirt as well, because Merc is a meme apparently. And then if you don't have any money but you still want to help out, there is a link to Gawkbox down below, which essentially is, it has you download phone games, play them for a few minutes, you earn money, you donate it to me, it's free, it takes a few minutes of your time. You could have been doing it while you were watching this video. There you go. Thanks for watching regardless though, everybody. Sayonara and stay epic.